All right. Hey guys, what's up? Dave Duford here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. It is May 1st, 2017. It is starting to finally get a little sunny outside, and I believe I'm live. Let's see here. There it is. Okay, perfect. I don't know what I did there, but I'm back now, back in the saddle. So thanks, guys, for joining so much. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. We had a pretty cool morning this morning. I had a really good agent out of Idaho named Glenn give us a very detailed description and overview of our seminar marketing program and how he has successfully employed it in his market, where final expense is not necessarily top of mind, or at least is not the most competitive as far as agents that are out there. The guy is writing 3 cases on average in senior living facilities and upwards of 4 to 5 cases on average in senior activity centers. So it's pretty incredible, and he's done a pretty good job. So Glenn, thanks for taking your time today and describing that, and really appreciate your input. So today I am doing a topic on how to basically transition into final expense from your current career fully into a full-time position in the final expense. Now, the reason I'm putting this out is really geared towards those agents who are considering making a move, or I should say people considering making a move into being an agent, and want to know what pathway is out there to best get the best results. A lot of people I talk to have talked to other agencies before talking to me, and one of the things they always kind of say is, a lot of these agents want you to buckle down and dial in completely. And I get why they say that. One of the things Glenn said today about his senior marketing approach is that it's really important to be fully vested, to jump in with both feet. And there's something to be said about that. The problem, I think, is that it's not necessarily realistic, especially for new people who can only go on faith to walk away from something that is significant, usually their current job. A lot of people come into final expense because they have nothing else to lose. To be quite frank, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. They've lost their jobs. Their industry is gone, or it is melting away, and there's no sense of long-term opportunity. And so what happens is those guys can get into it a lot easier than the guy who is enjoying a decent income. It's taking care of his family. He's got benefits, but there's a lot at risk in order to make that full transition. And so that's who I'm kind of geared towards, because it's the one thing about final expense that's different. If you're coming from the corporate world, or even if you come from a corporate sales position, the one big difference that probably you're not experiencing now is that final expense is straight commission. You're going to wake up every single morning not knowing where your next paycheck's going to come from. You hope that you're going to get out there and actually sell some policies to make some closes, to make some money. But you don't know if today is going to bring you something or nothing. You can only put in your effort and put the system to work in order to hopefully get it. But there's no guarantees. And for a lot of people, that is a huge emotional jump to get to overcome in order to accept that reality. And a lot of people have a lot at stake before getting to that point. And so it's important to hopefully kind of describe a process to get there that is effective, that allows you to learn this business, to be successful, but also not to risk everything that you have, because I just don't think that's sensible for the type of person that this is described in the prior description. Daniel, thanks for joining today. Hope you're doing well. So let me start by telling you my story here after I mute my phone. If you'll excuse me for just a second. All right, there we go. So back in 2011, I was, actually I'll go back further than that. Back in 2009, 2010, I had a very successful personal training business where I was a sole proprietor. I had my own business called Body Elite Personal Training. All the stuff behind me are kind of my accomplishments from that career 10 years ago. And I had a lot of clients. I was very successful for a young 20-something-year-old. And but got to the point where, like a lot of you guys that are older than I am, had a business that was going great, and then the economy took a giant dump. And things changed dramatically. Money wasn't as freely available. People weren't spending as much of it. Even though they may have had it, they just got scared about it. And my business eventually felt the effect about a year after the economic crisis ensued in 2007, 2008, if memory serves me right. Maybe it's been 2008, 2009. Yeah, it was, because that's when Obama was elected. So what had happened at that point is I noticed in 2010 a shocking reduction in the level of personal training business. And where I was making, again, as a 22, 23-year-old, $50,000, $60,000 in income a year. I didn't have a boss. I worked when I want to. I was at a gym, so I got to work out all the time. It was great. A third of my business disappeared inside of a 2-month span. Got some of it back, kind of floated along, but I noticed it was costing me more money to get in to buy business. You know, the cost of procuring business was more expensive, and the actual value of my business, my average customer value, was dropping. People weren't spending as much, and not as much people were spending as much. So it had the impact that I was working for less money. And it was obvious that for the time being, the foreseeable future, personal training was going to kind of go into a difficulty. And I got to the point where, you know, I knew I had to do something else, but I had a core group of clients that, you know, I didn't want to give up on, that were providing me enough income to pay my basic bills. And so my strategy was to eventually I just look for a job. I was actually looking to make a full jump into something else. And I stumbled across Final Expense doing research on the internet. And I liked the concept. The whole thing made a lot of sense to me. But knowing who I am, I mean, I looked at it and I thought, you know, look, this is all about getting out there and seeing the people. It's not a technical product. How difficult can it be? And I think I was right about that assessment. But beyond being confident, I wanted to make sure before I gave up on essentially a guaranteed source of income, that this was actually going to work out the way I thought it would. So I got involved in Final Expense. And the way that I get involved here is how I would recommend for you guys out there that are in a position where it's good enough, but you're not to the level that you want to be. You see Final Expense as an avenue to increase your income, to increase your personal freedom, to potentially build a business through building a renewal stream or building a downline, that kind of thing. You see the opportunities, but you just are not sure of how to get there. This is what I would recommend. I started Final Expense part-time. I didn't jump ship entirely. I looked at my schedule and the way that I could control it, and I partitioned out the days in a way that I decided would make sense for me in order to run both businesses effectively, as opposed to dabbling in one or the other. Now, it was easy for me, admittedly, because as a personal trainer who owned a gym, I could decide when I wanted to work and which days I wanted to work. For personal training, I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, in the mornings, afternoons, and evenings, and that was it. You know, I made the money I did, and then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I took my Final Expense leads, hit the road, and started working leads. It took me about 6 months of doing my schedule like that. Different people, different prospects, different leads, different areas, to the point where I felt really confident that I knew what I was doing selling Final Expense, and I felt confident enough in November. I started in April, actually May or June, and then in November, I closed down my shop, my personal training shop. I closed the door, didn't handle any more clients, I was done. And so it took me that long, actually about 4 months of consistent work, because I think I started June 1st was my first day actually selling. I was licensed in April, but didn't start till June. So I got to that point where I realized, okay, I feel comfortable, and I closed the shop down. So it was easy for me, but the point is you can take 15 leads a week of direct mail leads and figure out a way to see these people. Because most of you guys out there, I would assume, are probably working standard hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And you can find time on the days that you aren't working or the times you're not working to go work a small amount of leads. Because the benefit to doing this is you've got a guaranteed assurance of what income is coming in. And what that eliminates is this thing we call commission breath. Commission breath is the concept that if you get out there, you've got to make this sale. You have to make it happen, or the mortgage payment is going to be missed. And with commission breath, people don't know it, but they sense that you're desperate, and they don't buy from people like you if you're in that position. So it's good to not have that. So when you've got and know you have money coming in through your full-time job, it takes that pressure off. But the thing you don't want to do at the same time, like I said earlier, part-time work doesn't mean part-time effort. You should have a full-time mentality when you do a part-time job. So if you decide that for your schedule, okay, I work Monday through Friday, I get off at 5, I can go work 6 to 9, I can work 2 appointments then I can go do the same thing on Wednesday and Thursday, so that gives me 2 days, that's 4 appointments that I can go door knock, and then I can work Saturday from 9 till 4 or 9 to 5 or even all day if I wanted to. I could work 5, 6, 7 appointments like that, and you can. All you need is 15 leads to do that. Every day that you designate to that has to be given towards producing final expense business. And that's where the difficulty lies in. A lot of people have other obligations outside of their full-time work, but if you're serious about potentially making a transition, you're actually in the best position to do it. You just have to have the discipline to keep a schedule to make it sensible like that. So my recommendation is look at your schedule, look at what you can do, see what's possible. If you can move things around in your schedule without putting your job at risk, do that, because final expense can be sold 7 days a week from 9 in the morning to 9 at night. Okay, there's really no limitations of when you can go sell these people. So it's really flexible. Define what you can do within your construct of your wage earning job, and then put in final expense where you can see fit. And you'll find you can at least work 15 leads a week, which would probably be about 6 to 9 presentations roughly. You can squeeze that in over 2 to 3 days, 1 full day Saturday and a couple of partials. Again, I've had agents who've done this, who've made an extra $40,000, $50,000 in income while they keep their full-time jobs, and that's nice money for them without too much extra burden. But the main reason you do this, again, is to give your chance to really see if this business is right for you, to experience firsthand what these prospects are like, what the leads are like, what the carriers are like, what the actual activity is like, and to give yourself a full expanse of time to really determine if this business is right for you without totally walking away with a sure thing. And again, the way I think is different from a lot of other recruiters out there. Again, if you've talked to recruiters, they want you completely invested in them. And I get that. But with this approach, if you mentally know that you're going to be fully committed to the minimal time that you have, and you give yourself the time and take the pressure of the income earning opportunity off of you, it allows you to learn this business, become better at it at a pace that is not pressured by bill requirements and bill demands, and it allows you to just maximize your results altogether. So I'm a big proponent of this. If somebody is interested in selling final expense, but they're just not too sure with what time they have available, go part-time. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you have the discipline. And somebody who's disciplined is going to be disciplined full-time or disciplined part-time, and somebody who's not disciplined is just not going to be disciplined at all. And so for me, to ask someone to leave something if they're not 100% sure that final expense is the way to go, I'm not comfortable with it. And I think the part-time approach is a great method to do it. I mentioned earlier, I think, maybe I didn't, but I actually flunked out of this business when I was about a year into it. And the reason I flunked out of it was because of some mistakes I made personally. I got deviated from the actual system of the lead generation system we use with direct mail, which is what I recommend primarily for agents to do. I started experimenting with different lead sources, different approaches to setting appointments, and it all ended up being worse for me. There was a little bit blame that I'll place on the organization I worked with at the time. They did some things that weren't necessarily what I expected or hoped to be. And it caused, on top of my own personal mistakes, exponential problems. But I was at a point where I had to get back into a full-time position. And it was actually funny because it was my first real job. I always worked for myself, and I got a job at a uniform sales company working full-time. And I had personally quit final expense. I mean, mentally, I remember the feeling when I quit. I hated the people I was dealing with. I hated the process. I was just emotionally spent, because that's the reality, and that's kind of why I'm partial to this part-time buildup, because it is a totally different animal. Unless you sold straight commission, you don't understand really what this business is like, because sales is pretty much emotional, and it's all up here in your head. Sure, your scripts, sure, there's things you say, and there's selling and all this stuff that matters, but the stuff between your head is your worst competition, and you got to master that. And it's hard to explain that to somebody who has no reference point of straight commission sales. That's why I'm a little bit more sensitive to the whole part-time start build up until you get comfortable with it, and then let the guarantees go to shoulder the risk, because now you know you can handle it once you've gone through several months of this. So why I'm bringing this up, I went back full-time, and I was working full-time, and the same thing applied there. I would work in a sales position, and on the times that I designed, I would work half days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and full day Saturdays. And it sucked, because I did this for about a year, because I quit the business. I started working for somebody else. The funny thing, of course, is I never had the experience of working for somebody else, and I realized how much I hated it. I didn't like having a boss micromanaging me, selling a product I thought was subpar, and obviously going to work with people who hated what they did too. It was just really depressing, and I couldn't imagine myself living a life like that. And so it's funny when you have something to compare what you thought sucked to, and you realize that it didn't really suck all that bad anyway. It just took some maturity to see what the alternative was, to realize final expense isn't bad if I just do what I'm supposed to do, which I did. And so it took me a year of doing this approach. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. You shouldn't be doing a month of final expense part-time, be like, great, I'm going to lose everything, or just drop out of everything, full-time career, and go into this. If it's a process you need to take, then let the process roll out. You don't need to jump in and give everything you can if you're not in the position financially best to handle it. Because final expense is always going to be there, right, guys? I mean, final expense isn't going anywhere. People are going to continue to die into their old age, and there's a lot of poor people that don't have insurance, and that's who we sell to. So it's going to be around. The key is to do it the right way the first time, not the right way the third or the fourth or the fifth time, because there probably isn't going to be a third, fourth, or fifth time. So the keys to doing that right are what I've just described. You get out there, and like what I did the second time around, you get on a direct mail lead program, is what I highly recommend. Capitalize yourself to the best that you can. Make sure that you've got arrangements to where your bills are paid for. A lot of straight commission guys don't realize they should have money set aside for rainy days, because there's no straight commission sales guy that consistently bangs out heavy premium every single month. We have ups and we have downs. That is the nature of any business. And it's getting through the downs that determines your level of ability to survive or not. And so it's important to make sure that you've got the money set aside, or if you have a spouse that works, that helps tremendously. And really give yourself the time to develop. It takes a long time to be good at anything, and final expense is no better. It's a simple business, but it's not easy. But you got to give yourself the time for your brain and your emotional stability to develop on a straight commission basis. And so the second time around, I was very sensitive to that, because I had failed the first time. And so it took me a year. It took me a whole year of working like this, where I would take 25 leads a week, work about 12 appointments, maybe 15, closer to 12 probably, maybe write $3,000 in premium, not a lot of premium, write $10,000 to $15,000 a month roughly, and take the proceeds to bankroll myself on direct mail leads, and then also take the proceeds to set aside as a cash, quote, slush fund. So that way I would have money to support myself in case the inevitable lows came, which they do and continue to, of course, interposed with ups as well that are very profitable. So, and I remember when I quit my job, let's see if I can go back to that. I remember my wife was 36 weeks pregnant with twins. make things a little bit more worrisome. I had twins on the way. She had got admitted she had a car wreck that same day. And hey, Brian, I'll answer that question in a second. Hey, Robert, how you doing? She had a car wreck. I remember the last sales call I was on with the uniform company. I raced home 90 miles an hour in a 65. And she was 36 weeks pregnant when this asshole sideswiped her. She was okay, but they decided to induce labor, and we delivered babies like literally the following 3 or 4 days. And I put in a 12-week absence from the job to make sure I had my health insurance, and then quit officially. Like December will be like 4 years, I think, or 3 years. Can't believe it's been that long. But right after we had the babies, I went back to work, and I worked full-time at that point, and was so glad that I set it up that way so that I wasn't rushing myself into a position where I would have to go back and admit to my wife that I made another mistake by reacting too quickly and not making good decisions, and now I have to go work this job again that I hate, and knew that I could do better. So, and here I stand. Like I said, 3.5, 4 years later at this point. So, moral of the story here, guys, is, if you like final expense, great. It's a good business. It's simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. And it's going to allow you the freedom to do things the way you want to do them. You won't have a boss anymore. You'll have to motivate yourself to get up and go to work. But if you like that idea of going out there and helping people, making good money to do it, this is a really good career to do that. But don't blow it. Don't rush it. Don't pull the trigger too quick. Take your time. Strategize an exit plan. If it's got to take a year, it's got to take a year. Set aside the proceeds from your sales to self-fund yourself if you aren't in the position to do so immediately, so that when you do deliver your 2-week notice, you can do so with confidence, at least maximally confident. That, hey, I've done this for a year. I feel comfortable about this. I've got a base of experience and knowledge, and getting out here and just doing what I'm doing part-time and doubling my effort on a full-time basis is going to be just as effective. It's a lot different experience. It's the best way to do it, and it's what I recommend. Okay, so let's see here. I'm reading the comment section. Brian asked, is final expense seasonal? I'll address that question first, Brian, before I get to the next one. Very good question. Is final expense seasonal? I do not think it is for the most part. If anything, the end of the year is probably the most difficult. The tire kickers have more believable excuses. They've got grandkids' presents to pay for, and they've got all sorts of junk to get, and they're usually a little bit harder to reach just because so much is going on. But you don't see the people that we sell take vacations. Like, it's May now? You would think Memorial Day weekend's coming up here in a couple weeks, in June and July. Oh my gosh, it's going to be hard to reach people. For a small, insignificant portion, yes, but the vast majority of them are going to be still at home, sitting around watching Jerry Springer. So calling on them is going to be easy as always. In fact, I think summer months are actually some of the most productive ones for me personally. For me, though, I will say personally, December, I do not fight the current anymore. I don't work December, period. Actually, I worked last December, and it was bad. So, I've always had personal difficulties with Decembers. I've had other agents who've argued with me about that, and that's fine. If it works for you, great. Work a December. Work in a November. See if it works for you. If it doesn't, then just don't do it. And that's kind of how I personally worked it out. Brian also asked, is there any pattern to the up and or lows? How long do they typically last? That's a good question. The first thing you want to ask yourself is, am I causing the lows? Okay? Am I doing something that is causing me to have difficulties? Okay? The main reason I'm asking that is because, I have an agent come to me and says, Dave, man, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm having a frustrating time. This isn't working right. What am I doing? First thing I always ask people is, let's take a look at your numbers. Over the past month, how many presentations have you averaged a week? And if they're getting, and then I'll ask them how many leads they're getting, and then how many sales, just on basis of policies they've written. So I have somebody who says, well, I've done 20 presentations. Okay, I've gotten 80 leads, and I've made 5 sales. I'll tell them, or let's say they make 10 sales, okay? I'll tell them, look, the reason you're having lows is very simple. It's because you're not doing enough activity. When you buy 80 leads, it breaks down to 20 leads a week, and you're only doing 20 presentations, that's 5 presentations a week. That means your presentation conversion ratio off your leads is 25%. But you're closing half of the presentations you sit with. That's perfect. So what you need to do is get in front of more people. So a lot of the times, I would say about 80% of the times, you'll find that these lows are attributed to low production, low activity, and things that people really know they should be doing better, but they're ignoring or not being honest about. So I think that's part of the reason. The other part is there are times when you can do everything right and it just doesn't work out. Case in point, I've told this story many a times. I was up in a place called Crossville, Tennessee, which is like a retirement golfing mecca. A lot of Midwesterners and Northeasterners come down and retire there. I thought, well, hell, there's a lot of old people up there. I'll drop a bunch of mail. Response rate was fantastic. And the first 15 appointments I ran that week up there, I got no sales, nothing at all. Everybody saw me, nobody no-showed me, but everybody was just a jerk. They thought it was free insurance, they were convinced it was free, and they did not want to buy life insurance, even though the thing said life insurance programs on it. It drove me nuts. I thought, I'm losing my mojo, it's all over. But then on the 16th one, same area, I sold $4,000 in premium in one home. It was just like, this business is fucked up. I say it like that. I hate to be blunt, but that's how this business is sometimes. Because you'll sit there, you'll do everything right, and then you hit this huge deal that you never thought was coming until, holy crap, you just closed this deal that made up for the 2 crappy days that you ran, the 15 crappy appointments you ran. And then the rest of the week, that make things even stranger, I went over to another county, a little place called Athens, Tennessee, and I wrote another 4,000 business. I wrote like 8 more policies. So I ended the week with 8,000 in premium when I was convinced that on the 15th appointment that this business, where I dropped the wrong area, everything was wrong, I was flipping out, I was emotional, and if I had quit at that point, I would have never gotten the production out of it. So I did everything right. I didn't screw around. I didn't do anything wrong. The only thing I did wrong was drop the wrong area, but I would have known that otherwise until I dropped it. And so I say all this because that does happen sometimes, but the next deal is just right around the corner. And the great thing about a business like this is it is a numbers game. And when you put the inputs in, you put the presentations in, if you scale this up and you look at this over a longer period of time, multi-month period of fashion, you're going to find your numbers are pretty consistent. But what happens in between, you're going to have some ups and some downs. You just have to stay consistent. You kind of have to have short-term amnesia, wake up every morning and just do the same thing anyway, despite poor results. And you'll find that things are usually going to turn out better. As far as the length of how long they last, it just really depends. If it's not self-induced low activity, then usually it's over in a week or 2. I've known guys that have had longer cold spells than others. I've known guys that have run hot for months, and you start believing your poop doesn't stink, and you think that you're great, and then you just forget that this is just how the business works sometimes. You got to stay humble, but you also got to stay grounded as well, both in the highs and the lows. And generally speaking, they do work out in your favor as long as you're doing the correct approach. A lot of times, and this kind of leads to another point, a lot of times what agents will do is they'll get away from what does work. And this is a very common occurrence among producers, is they'll find something that works so well that they just won't do it anymore. And that's kind of how this business is, final expense. For you new guys, final expense is a simple business. It's so simple, though, that it's complicated. And what I mean by that is, we're selling simplified issue products. There's no underwriting. It's a one-call close. You're either going to sell it or not. You got to think like that. And you just rinse and repeat every single day. You don't do anything different. You give the same presentation with little nuanced differences, of course, and you just keep doing it. And that's all you need to do. And what I'm doing 6 years into this business is practically 100% mirror image of what I did when I first started in 2011. It's 2017 now. And the market is still the same people, still the same kind of buyers, in the same positions, same quality of life that they always had. And there's no difference in how we're marketing to these people. And it's just no difference to how we're selling them. And you cannot forget that, because when a lot of people out there, and I know a lot of agents like this, when things start getting bad, they think this system's broke. Well, now let's go do X type of leads, or let's go to Y kind of new found idea that's wild, that sounds great on paper, but probably isn't going to be anywhere near as good as boring ass direct mail leads. I mean, I say it like that because I'm like that, and it's taken me years to train me out of this, what if this is better? The shiny object syndrome is what a lot of guys call it. Is they get distracted by this new approach that sounds cool and awesome and effortless and easy, and it's just like an ATM that spits money out at you. No, it's never like that. And if they say it's like that, it's because you're being had, and you got to watch yourself. This is a tough business, and it's supposed to be tough because the commissions wouldn't be good if it was easy. It would be like working a teller, where you take an order. There's a level of difficulty in this business to flesh out the weak hands and keep in the ones that can handle it, because those are the ones that are going to make the money and they're going to be successful. So kind of went on a rant there, but important to hear nevertheless, and how to keep your mindset right, because you really just need to go to work, do the job you're told to do, and go back home. And, just rinse and repeat. If you just want to sell and you want to keep it simple, and keep it simple. That's the key thing. That's final expenses is where it's at. You're welcome, Brian. No problem. Hope that helps. Daniel asks, how do you find more up-to-date info on local population other than 2010? My area has almost doubled in time since the last census. Sorry, my grammar problems. No problem, Daniel. Yeah, it's a good question. I really don't know. The best thing, and I know you're probably researching like the training on the lead areas to target. You got use your gut and your instinct and your experience locally firsthand. The tools that I train agents to use to kind of research an area, if it's a good area to drop direct mail or whatever, is just a cursory beginning. It certainly isn't up to date. You make a good point, Daniel. 2017, 2010, lots of changes, especially in high level areas, where like Florida or Texas, or Atlanta, where growth is just through the roof. The key thing I can tell you is always pick areas with poor people. I mean, if there's one way to summarize in one sentence who to target with final expense, poor people. You got to find the group of poor people that you prefer to work with. You want to work in the city, you want to work in the rural areas, you want to work in small town America. That's your choice. You got to figure out what works best for you. So use that as a reference guide. I would say more often than not, it's kind of a guess here, you may want to look at income averages. Poor areas of town typically stay poor. Same with rural areas. Now, there's obviously exceptions. If there are sprawling suburbs, you can think of like north of Atlanta. I don't know Atlanta very well, but I'm sure if you look at outside of Atlanta, there's sprawling suburbs where the growth is just enormous, and where what used to be rural is now suburban, and average incomes have been pushed up. But ultimately, household income doesn't change too much, especially if the areas remain more or less static. And you'll know better than I would if an area is a better area and is more stable, if it's more rural or not, or if it's changed much, and kind of juxtapose that with what your research is showing you. But that's the key thing in final expense. Do not drop in wealthy areas. Do not drop in middle class areas. You'll find that the respondents are middle class. They will be wealthy, and they will think this is free insurance. I'll tell you this might interest you guys. I had a card I sent off, and of course, me not following my own advice. There's a zip code that is partially rural, partially poor, but it's a huge, sprawling part of suburban Chattanooga. You get a lot of people going there for the school systems. There's a lot of McMansions out there. And I got a card back from a guy, and I was running this appointment 2 weeks ago. So I go in this back road, like I said, out in the middle of the country, and I go into what appears to be a giant farm ranch, okay? And there's two big houses, and nice little stream on the side. I thought, oh man, where am I? This is a waste of time. I even thought, I want to run this appointment, but I said, what the hell? I have to go talk to these people on YouTube. I can't be a guy who's not doing what he's telling these guys to do. So anyways, I rolled up to this house, and there was a brand new AMG Mercedes in the front yard. It said, SR SD on it. And I thought, I don't know what that means. Or RSD or something like that. And there was nice vehicles, way nicer than mine. A nice house. So I walk up to the door and I knock on the door. Old dude walks out. He's like in his 70s. You know, he's got his Boca Raton shirt on, and I'm thinking, oh, this guy's got a yacht. What is he doing sending this damn card in? And so he says, look, I told you to call me before, you came over here because I'm just way too busy to talk to you right now. I just don't have the time. And I said, well, before I go, let me ask you just to make sure we're on the same page here. I said, you know this is about life insurance, right? He sent this card back, and he says, no, I didn't want life insurance. I sell life insurance. I said, really? I said, okay. I said, what do you do? He says, have you ever heard of Primerica? I was like, yeah, I know what Primerica is. They replace their coverage all the time. And, no, just kidding. Anyways, he said, yeah. He says, I'm actually a senior director. That was his license tag on his Mercedes. He says, I'm a senior regional vice president. I think that's what he was. I've been with Primerica back when it was A.L. Williams. And I've been with him for 30, 40 years. I forgot what he said. He's retired now. And he was actually a big dude in the term insurance business when Primerica was pushing buy term and sell the difference or invest the difference. And he sent this card back. I never got to speak with the guy, though. I kind of wish I did, just from the standpoint of kind of learning what he knows. But this guy sold insurance his whole life, and he sent one of these damn cards in. I mean, that's what happens. There's no business sending this card in, but the guy did. And that's what these people will do. And you'll get people who you would think would otherwise be intelligent send these cards back, and they have the resources and don't need to buy insurance, or they sell it and recruit like crazy. So anyways, pretty interesting story. The wrap up here, Daniel asked, what about I didn't get a chance, Daniel, to ask him why he sent the card in. He was dismissive. He was wanting to go back in, and his phone was ringing, and I just wanted to know if it was worth my time coming back, because I thought, oh, this guy's just, just made a mistake. And then he told me about the Primerica thing. I was like, man, I should have pushed for a rescheduled appointment. Daniel asked, I'm doing my research to place my order, so research zip codes like crazy. Yeah, with the zip code research, before you put your order in, make sure you're looking at income ranges. And trust your gut, okay? Think poor and look for the areas that would be people who don't have a lot of money. And when they send these cards back, they're sending it in because they need to get coverage. And if they die, somebody else is going to have to pay for it. It's the best general advice when picking an area. Brian asks, actually, Matt says he bought term and it is expired. Probably did. I don't know if the guy needs insurance now. He might have actually invested it, like he said. Most of these people who buy term don't invest the difference. Ask final expense agents. They all see people who had the term insurance that never did a damn thing with the difference. They followed what I like to prospect on: buy term and blow the difference. Buy shit you don't need, and then let me sell you a policy so I can make a sale. And then come back when you're old and you never saved anything, and I can sell you another one. That's great. But anyways, all joking aside, Brian asked, is there a hard stop on medium household income? I'm shooting for 35 or less. Should I expand on that? Sorry for hijacking the session. No problem, Brian. No, this is pretty useful. I like doing these kind of general questions. Let me ask you a question, Brian, to follow up. Remind me where you live. Do you live in South Carolina? Reply back real quick, and I'll tell you. Daniel, yeah, Daniel. It depends on your area. There's going to be areas where the average income is going to be higher, and you got to be careful, at least cognizant of that. Like California, the median or top level should be the median. If you have a 40 or 50,000 income range average, that's fine in California because everybody makes a little more over there anyway to compensate for how crazy it is. So Brian says, okay, you live in South Carolina and it's nearly all 40,000 or less. That should be fine. The average income range matters less to me, and I know South Carolina to some extent is going to be similar to Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, demographically speaking. So there's a lot of relation there. So what I would say here is that in your circumstances, I would be looking at more rural areas. Okay, so if you live in Columbia, just for the sake of example, and you start to look around Columbia, you're going to see Aiken County, you're going to see surrounding counties, and those are fine. I don't really care so much about the income range when I'm looking at a rural or a small town America type county. Let me show you the map here. Actually, I can do this right here. This would be cool. All right. So I'm going to pull up where I live and kind of show you what I'm doing. Just give you an example here. All right. So what you guys are looking at is where I live. Okay. So I'm in Chattanooga right here. And let me put in Hamilton County here. So if I work Hamilton County, I live in Hickson, all right? I know that I would never work Signal Mountain. I would never work down here where everybody shoots each other every day. But I'll work something like East Ridge, work East Brainerd, Tyner area, Harrison. These are like blue-collar areas or middle-class areas. And then Soddy Daisy up to Graysville is all country. So I have to segment by zip codes in a very populated county like this in order to make it make sense. But let's take the next county over. All right, hold on one second. Take a look at Bradley County. It's probably my favorite county to work. Bradley County, I don't do any sort of segmentation. Okay, I don't know if you can see on my screen here. I'm at 98,000 as of 2010. There's just under 100,000 people here. That's a big small city. Okay, Cleveland's the main town. All these others are really just extensions of Cleveland. Okay, so I don't do any sort of segmentation. It's a blue collar town. I know that there's a bunch of manufacturing there, so I don't ever segment anything there. Now, if I go to Marion County, Tennessee, which is over a little bit, and you're going to see only 28,000 people as of 2010. And again, very rural. This is a mountainous area here. And this is all kind of in the valley. This is kind of like old-timey America here, you know, just kind of a rural, poor area. So I don't do any kind of segmentation here, okay? Because I know that generally speaking, these counties are what they are. There's nothing really different about any of them when it comes to income areas like what Daniel was talking about, like a poor area versus a rich area, so on and so forth. And so as I kind of pull this out further, you know, we'll go up like Athens here, I'll work there. I just work the whole county. And really here where I'm kind of doing a circle here, I don't do any sort of segmentation. Now, if you got me into, look at Huntsville. If you got me into Huntsville, I don't know what Huntsville's like. I know there's some pretty badass areas that I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. So I'd be like, okay, I'm going to find the zip codes, write them down, and not drop there. But I also know that Huntsville has the highest per capita PhD population in America. Huntsville's I think NASA has a place out of there. They do a lot of rocket development or something, I don't know. Anyways, I don't want to work the areas that have a lot of money because they'll send the cards in and they won't buy. You know, they'll just do it out of curiosity. So it depends on the size of the city, guys. You know, that's the main thing. Same thing if I go down here to Atlanta. I'm going to be doing a lot of that. Like I know a dude who lives right by, I think he lives kind of in Midtown area, and he works everywhere inside the perimeter here, but he knows which areas or which zip codes he doesn't want to see, and he purposely ignores them and kind of critiques his campaign to make it make fit for what he's trying to accomplish. So I hope that helps, because the key thing here is not to get too bogged down in the details. You know, people are poor for the most part. There's not a lot of wealth in rural areas. There's some exceptions to that, but generally speaking, they're pretty homogenous. And so you don't need to do as much analysis as if you were to work at Columbia or if you were to work in Atlanta or Huntsville or Chattanooga. Hope that helps, Brian. Yeah, no problem. What's the average drive time you like to keep in? So yeah, I'll pull this bad boy back up here. I'll just show you on the map what I like. Hold on one second. All right. So average drive time, I live in Chattanooga, 1.5 to 2 hours. I'm working on shortening that, but I'll go up to Cookeville, way up here. I'll go to Manchester and Tullahoma. That's about 1.5 hours. Maybe hit Lynchburg up for some Jack Daniels. And then you've got Athens over here. It's about an hour away. Same thing, if I ever work Georgia again, it's just very hard to get leads down here. I like to work all this section. It's about an hour and a half. Rome is a good town to work. I kind of stay up here. Same thing with Alabama. Gadsden's a good town to work. Then Albertville down here. There it is. All up in the mountain. So, yeah, I don't really like to go more than, an hour. An hour is kind of like enough. I'll do an hour and a half if I have to. 2 hours is just way too long. I'll do it. I mean, I'm not saying I'll never do it. I just don't like to do it if I don't have to. And you really don't have to. There's an old joke this agent told me once. He's 70. He lives in East Tennessee, and he said, I knew an agent that lived up in Crossville. He hated Crossville, but he loved to work in Athens. And he says, I lived in Athens, and I hated working in Athens. I thought it was the worst place to work, so I like to work in Crossville. And he said he realized that, they were basically passing each other on the highway, waving at each other, to go work the areas that they lived in because their belief patterns dictated that, and experiences too, that the areas that they lived in were not good. And so there's probably something to be said about that. I used to be against working my home county, but I think partially because my business has evolved. I'm recruiting more. I'm not selling nearly as much as I used to. I'm staying closer to home than I have. I'm purposely trying to stay within an hour. I'll work further off than that, but to me, my motivation stays a lot higher if I am, face-to-face with these people. So hopefully that helps. Steve asked, have you heard of pre-approach leads before? Are they strictly door-knock leads with no phone number? I live in Montgomery, west of downtown Chicago. Pre-approach leads. Who do you work for, Steve? That might help me answer your question. Pre-approach leads are probably people I would suspect that have received leads, but never... and if you could answer that question, Steve, probably help me. I'm going based on what I remember. They're just people who never replied to a direct mail lead, I think. If that's the case, it's just a list. It's not really a lead. So, I'll let you kind of explain it a little bit better if you would, in a second. But, do whatever you can, man. If you are not in position financially to do leads, my recommendation is to do seminar marketing. Seminar marketing is the most effective way to generate free final expense leads without putting out any money. I just did an hour and a half long conference call on it. It was very good. I have a guy in Idaho that's writing $150,000 net commission a year. And all he does is seminars, and he does a damn good job at it. And it's not difficult to do. And I'd much rather a guy do that than cold calling, because cold calling is a frustrating emotional process, whereas giving seminars is not. It's quite the opposite. It's fun, easy to do, quick to get up and running. And best of all, it doesn't cost you anything to do so. So I would be looking at that, and that's what I train agents to do who are brand new that just don't want to put the money out. I had a couple agents, had an agent book 6 of them the other day. I had one of my agents, David. He might be on today's. If you're out there, Dave, how you doing? I think he wrote 4 deals on his first seminar he did. So there's so much business out there to be had, guys. And if you just go and ask for it and do the seminar, it's just an awesome way to do it without a huge expense. So waiting for Steve to reply. I don't think he'll get to it, but anyway, guys, I've been on about 50 minutes. I want to thank you so much for watching today's live stream. I hope it helped out with how to go from part-time, or to go from no time to part-time into final expense business and transition smoothly so you don't give up on something that is doing well for you. Hey, Caesar, how you doing? I'll give props to Caesar. Caesar wrote just shy of $40,000 in final expense production this month for our team. So congratulations, Caesar, on such an awesome month. And Michael was close behind at $30,000 for April, and all from referrals. A lot of them were for referrals. Were unique writers, yeah. Okay, those are probably, Steve, those are probably just leads that did not reply or send the card back. It's just a list of people. Look, it's better than nothing. You can bring the card and say, hey, you got these cards, you didn't send these off. I'm just the guy that follows up with people who did not send the cards back. But I totally feel it's much better for you to get out there and do a seminar, or even do something like going to a senior facility like a residence and just cold call. If you're going to do cold calling, might as well go there because everybody is a prospect in that regards as far as their age and income range goes. Much better than just cold calling door to door in the typical fashion. You're welcome, Daniel. Thank you, Caesar. And we'll see you next Monday, guys. I'll probably do a live stream before then when I'm out on the road, field training a couple agents this week. So you guys have a good one, and thanks for listening to today's training. Take care.